Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for Live at the Velocity Center. Before I begin, I'd like to note that this event is being streamed live on Facebook, so I ask that you please mute your electronic devices to ensure that the audio is not disturbed and so that our virtual audience may hear clearly. I'm Leslie Quattlebaum. I'm the Executive Director of the CSM Velocity Center at Indian Head. Thank you for joining us live at the Velocity Center, which is a series highlighting innovation, collaboration, and entrepreneurship in Southern Maryland. Tonight, episode 5, What is a MakerSpace, features a panel of experts with insights into the roles of makerspaces as learning spaces to support academia, workforce development, and economic growth. This series is sponsored in part by the Charles County Department of Economic Development, and we thank them for their generous support. The CSM Velocity Center is a place of innovation, learning, and collaboration for academia, the Navy, and the community. This collaborative learning space supports workforce development and economic growth in Southern Maryland through programming. Within this Velocity Center, we have a MakerSpace, which is across the hall. More than likely, you're attending this event tonight because you're curious about what a MakerSpace actually is and how it's relevant to you. The current market for makerspaces is a wide and varied ecosystem. New technologies like 3D printing and innovative business models such as micro businesses are disrupting and reshaping the market for technology ventures. In the educational arena, makerspaces that are viable and sustainable offer valuable educational opportunities for the community. The need for community makerspaces is growing. The CSM Velocity Center Makerspace will be a collaborative workspace dedicated to learning, exploration, and sharing. It houses the latest technology under one roof for you to imagine, tinker, and make. The CSM Velocity Center space is the only space of its kind in Charles County and the Southern Maryland region. Tonight, through our guest panelists, you'll learn more about makerspaces and how they benefit learning, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. Our panel will be moderated by Dr. Trenace Richardson, who is the Director of the Organizational Development and Learning Institute at CSM. Dr. Richardson will introduce our panel guests for this evening. So thank you for being here this evening, and I hope that you are well informed about makerspaces and have a great time this evening. Dr. Richardson.
Hello, everyone. I think I might be able to take this off from here. Hello again. All right. So we're going to liven things up with some discussion. It is really good to be here. It's a pleasure once again to moderate this series. We are pleased that you have joined us both virtually and in person. We've done a lot of this series during COVID, and so people have joined us in person. We're really excited about that. To discuss this incredible, innovative makerspace we have right here in Indian Head in the heart of Charles County at College of Southern Maryland. I am pleased to introduce you to an illustrious panel of experts for this amazing discussion. I'm going to introduce all of them to you and then ask a few starter questions to get us going. I'm hoping that we're also going to get to watch a video, and those who are in person are going to get to go on a tour afterward, should you so desire. I'm hoping that as you are listening attentively, that you jump in throughout the dialogue. I will invite you with questions and comments of your own. We will have a conversation amongst ourselves just to start, and then we welcome you to join us. Here in person, we'll ask that you share your questions with us verbally at the microphone. And virtually, we hope that you will send us your questions via chat. Those who send us their questions virtually, our amazing student assistants, Skylar and Michelle, will assist us in asking your questions aloud. And so please keep those questions coming. Y'all ready? All right. So our first panelist is just doing all that she can to make sure we're safe. She's feeling okay, but okay means that she's joining us virtually, and we're sending a whole lot of good thoughts your way while you're over there with us. But thank you, Bernice Brazina. And Bernice currently serves as the Dean of the School of Professional and Technical Studies at the College of Southern Maryland, where she provides leadership for the technology, engineering, mathematics, and business academic areas. She has been with College of Southern Maryland for over 30 years as a professor of technology and also a division chair. Bernice is a strong supporter for programs and initiatives to support underrepresented students in the STEM fields. She currently serves as a co-principal investigator for a National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Grant project called Cybersecurity Bridging the Gap, a project aimed at helping to build a local workforce with talented and diverse cybersecurity professionals. She started up, I did not know this, Bernice, she started up CSM's Talon's robotics team about 10 years ago and continues to champion experiential, hands-on, project-based learning opportunities for CSM students. And we can brag that we have one of the top robotics teams in the world, not just the country, in the world. Bernice is a lifelong resident of Charles County. I hope that everyone mutes for us so that we can only hear those who are sharing with us, and I'm sure some of our moderators will help us with that. Bernice is a lifelong resident of Charles County and a graduate of the College of Southern Maryland. How cool is that? University of Maryland College Park, where she completed a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. While going to school, Bernice worked as a cooperative education student and student trainee at NSWC Indian Head. She then worked at Indian Head as a structural analyst after graduation for several years before coming to College of Southern Maryland, first part-time as a mathematics instructor, and then eventually as a full-time technology faculty member. And while at CSM, she continued her studies to complete her master's degree in management. She is currently a doctoral student at Morgan State University. Help me welcome Bernice. And our second panelist is Wynn Briscoe. Wynn is a graduate of the University of Maryland with a bachelor's degree in criminology and criminal justice, a minor in business with a concentration in business law. She has more than 30 years of entrepreneurship and business ownership experience to include retail, professional services, technology, and manufacturing. Since 2001, Briscoe has successfully consulted and advised entrepreneurs, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. She's known for her creativity and innovation in the development of new businesses by offering in-depth experience and assisting them from concept to profitability to exit strategy. Wynn said she has a passion to work with young entrepreneurs and enjoys coaching and mentoring youth towards success while helping them realize business ownership and self-employment as a viable career option. She's also highly engaged in the Southern Maryland community and the Maryland small business ecosystem, offering her leadership, expertise, passion, and innovation to businesses, entrepreneurs, and community organizations. Wynn is proud to be the director of the Maryland Small Business Development Center at the College of Southern Maryland's Southern Maryland Regional Office. The Southern Region SBDC at CSM provides free, confidential business consulting and low-cost business training to aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners in Charles, Calvert, and St. Mary's counties. Some folks need to come see you. Briscoe previously served as SBDC Business Management, Technology, and Manufacturing Consultant. She's won numerous awards in recognition for her exemplary performance and commitment to small businesses. Most recently, the Maryland Governor's citation in recognizing small, minority, and women-owned businesses, the America's SBDC Maryland State Star, and the 2019 St. Mary's County Commissioner's Small Business Proclamation. The United States Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship requested Wynn to testify in person on Capitol Hill, the hearing, the corona business supply chain. And we need it back. There's a little echo. I'm sure. And we are so happy to have me welcome Wynn Briscoe. And last but certainly not least, Alex Baddock. Alex connects educators and businesses with the technologies, training equipment, and curriculum they need to cultivate the future workforce. Specifically, he focuses in the areas of skills-based technical training, which is manufacturing, electrical, construction, engineering, robotics, welding, etc., as well as maker education, which includes 3D printing, 3D scanning, laser cutting, STEM, art, and others. He is a sales consultant for Amtech, the company who outfitted much of our MakerSpace, and he graduated with a BS from the University of Maryland. Amtech Company is your local resource for technical training equipment, digital fabrication equipment, engineering, teaching equipment, and furniture and storage solutions for your technical spaces. They have been working with educators in the Mid-Atlantic region for over 40 years. And their team of experienced professionals like Alex can help us update, expand, and transform our programs. They also specialize, as we said, in MakerSpace design and helps through the entire process. They can help with design and layout, equipment selection, logistics, installation, training, and long-term support for your space. And with their state contracts, they simplify the ordering process as well. Help me welcome Alex. I know I took a lot of time to introduce them, but I told you we have a panel of experts who are well versed in this field, and it was worth giving them their accolades. And so again, we're going to start with just a few starter questions. We're going to share a video with you at some point, and we really do want you to prepare your questions. Something that all of us will be wondering right off the bat is, what is a makerspace? Am I right? For some people, okay, I see some nods. And so we're going to start there. And I'll just start with you, Alex, since you're knee deep in all of this, right? What is a makerspace? Can you help us with that first and foremost?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, great job.
So makerspace is sort of like the word STEM, if you've heard that word.
Could you break it down just in case?
So STEM or STEAM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And if it's STEAM, it adds A for art. So that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It really is similar to makerspaces, because makerspaces can mean a lot of different things to different people. But the way that I think of a makerspace is a place where you can go to develop an idea that you have into a physical product. And that may or may not be a product that you wish to sell. There's plenty of companies that utilize makerspaces to help take an idea from in their minds to an actual product that they prototype and then they pitch and then they sell. And that is one aspect of it, but it's also a learning space. It can be anything from elementary school, middle school, all the way up to the university level have access to these spaces. And traditionally, they contain technology that normal, everyday people would never have access to otherwise. Large companies, large universities have equipment like this if you work in a specific department, if you're part of that organization. But if you're somebody that just thinks of a great idea, you don't typically have access to the tools you need to bring that idea to life. And a makerspace like this gives you that access. It can be many more things than that, but in my mind, that's sort of the basic principle behind a makerspace.
That was the simplest, most rational answer I've heard. I mean, for a layperson like me, I really appreciate your answer. It makes me feel better. What I envision are the machines that allow you to create a 3D image from a laser. Is that what we're talking about, at least?
There are lasers and 3D printers in makerspaces typically.
Great. Okay, I see some smiles and nods. I think we have a better idea of what a makerspace is. I'd like to ask, because we do have one here in this community, when I'm wondering how you feel a makerspace in the community like this would help us as it relates to entrepreneurship, those businesses who are here. How does a makerspace even help those of us who are in business, whether we're working for ourselves or someone else? That's okay.
A makerspace, to your point, Alex, gives access. So if you are an entrepreneur and you do not have the funding to initially purchase, or even the space, because as you can see, it does take a considerable amount of space, you may not have access or space for equipment. So utilizing the space, having the access to software, which can then produce those models, and also having the equipment access cuts your costs down. It also is going to stem and really blossom entrepreneurship. They may take something from being a hobby or just a passion and realize, you know what, I can monetize this because now I have a way of being able to scale it in a way that I could not have at home in a basement or a garage, and have use of the space here and be able to grow from something you just like to make for fun to now, might be in demand and be able to scale that in a monetizing way.
I love that. It can become a stream of income for someone who's just exploring right now. It may not have had access or exposure to it before. Now it's in the community, they have access, and it could possibly become a stream of income. Thank you for that. I guess I'm wondering, because we are the College of Southern Maryland, Bernice, you've done so much. Our robotics team, I believe, meets here often, and they have recently competed on a global level. And I would love for you to brag about that a little bit. But while you do that, just really talk about how a makerspace like this can really help our students as they move into having the skills that they need in this technological age.
I can speak to that, Trinace. So makerspaces do provide a potential for experiential project-based learning for our students. And there is a lot of research, even recent research, that shows that these experiences, as well as makerspace experience, promotes problem solving, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, teamwork skills. And those are the skills that our employers on our program advisory boards confirm with us are their top hireable skills, aside from the discipline knowledge that students bring. So we find them very valuable for improving students' confidence, their resiliency, as well as their innovation self-efficacy. For example, they provide students the ability to work with different materials, with tools, and that increases their confidence. It also, when you provide the students a project, you're introducing work ethic, responsibility. They're becoming part of a team where they each have a role. they're accountable to each other. So it's all of these professional skills that only comes with these types of experiences that makerspaces can bring to their learning. And they also have the potential to attract a wider variety of students from STEM or in addition to STEM, including business, like you mentioned, and even the arts that I think was mentioned. So we find the value in that ability to foster that innovation, creativity, the collaborative learning, again, problem solving, critical thinking. One of the things we hear from students, for example, when I used to be in the lab with the robotics team, is that they're seeing how their abstract learning from mathematics, engineering, and so forth now turns into more hands-on tactile learning. And so it's less mysterious to them, especially in fields like electrical engineering and computer science, where a lot of the learning is very abstract. For example, when the Talons or other engineering students are in a makerspace environment, they're able to, for example, create some code and then see what that does with a robot or some other device that they might create. For example, in our intro to engineering class, they're creating projects like a block sorter. So they're doing all the design work and programming and so forth, and seeing that come to life. So that's the value that I see that these maker spaces are bringing to academics.
That's amazing. I can only imagine being able to turn theory into actual practical, something that they really get to produce with their own hands as a result of what they've learned in the classroom. That's amazing. Could you just brag a little, and just before we maybe go to the video, could you share what place our Talon Robotics team placed in the world? Just a little bit of bragging.
Well, it depends on, I do know that they are the top community college team in the world. They've consistently pushed themselves and done better each year. I can talk all day about the Talons if you let me, Trinace.
Yeah, I understand. We'll release you at some time, but really wanted to just show the importance of what a space like this can do. Our students are learning hands-on, and they're able to compete globally as a result of what they're learning. So thank you for that. So we are going to show you a video because some of you are not in person with us, sad face, and you won't be able to see in person, but we want you all to experience and know just a little bit about it. And we really do hope you are getting your questions ready, your comments ready for our experts. We would love to hear from you, but I think we're ready. Let's watch the video together. Yeah, we have a plan B if that cone means something bad. No worries. There we go.
The CSM Velocity Center. By definition, velocity means the speed of something in a given direction. Sometimes that speed is fast, and sometimes that speed is slow. The CSM Velocity Center is a place of innovation, learning, and collaboration for academia, the Navy, our students, and the community. It's a place where everyone can move at their own pace to make their ideas come to life. That's where the MakerSpace comes in. The CSM Velocity Center MakerSpace is a 1,984 square foot open room that is a collaborative workspace specifically for manufacturing things, learning, exploring, and sharing. It's a place to invent, tinker, and play. And more than that, it's for all ages and can be used by everyone in this community. The CSM Velocity Center MakerSpace is equipped with a variety of additive equipment, such as 3D printers and subtractive machines, such as laser cutters and CNC router. We also provide both hardware and software for cyber gaming, CAD modeling, simulation, app development, robotics, and prototyping. Imagine making your own 3D puzzle, computer parts, tools, and even a statue of Einstein. Picture a space where drones are flying around. Create your own challenge coins or an address plaque for your residents. Stretch your imagination further to create holograms and virtual reality scenarios that fit your vision. That is the goal of the Velocity Center MakerSpace, to allow CSM to help this community act as a catalyst for economic growth in our region by awakening the ingenuity in all of us.
I think that deserves applause. And I'm not sure we realize how incredible it is that we have something like this in our community right here in Southern Maryland. It was really nice in the video to see and envision all that can be done with it. I'd like to transition to Win right now, because as soon as I walked in, I was like, oh, what is that? So there's something really practical here that maybe you can talk about a little bit, Win, as it relates to what we're seeing.
Can I take this? You just put it right back in. So this was my senior project, high school. Alex and I were talking about this. So I went to the Forest, if any of you are in St. Mary's County, we went to the Forest Technology Center. That was 9th through 12th grade. And in addition to high school, obviously. And the career field that I, at that time, had a strong interest in was computer-aided drawing as well as architecture. Part of the senior project, you were given just a floor plan as a high school senior, and you had to produce the home. This is made of 3 elements, which is balsa wood, which is a malleable wood. It's thicker than a popsicle stick, but it's a very great wood that you can manipulate into things. So we were given wood, glue, and straight pins, if you can imagine. And those were the only 3 elements that we were allowed to use to create the actual home. So we had to use our AutoCAD, and from there, take it from the sketch drawing that we were provided by the teacher, put it into AutoCAD, do a actual 3D floor plan in AutoCAD, print it out on the plotter, which Trinice would be appreciative of. And then from there, we had to use just the pieces of, they gave us just long strips of wood, and we had to cut it down to scale and actually make a house. So this is the house that I was given on my floor plan. This is your foyer. As you come through into here, this is your living room, this is your kitchen, this is your bedroom 1 with a closet, bedroom 2 with a closet, and then there was like a laundry room area here, which exits out onto the patio. So this was my senior project in order to graduate out of high school, utilizing 3D CAD, utilizing the plotting, which was, tooling it out. We had to draw by hand as well with tools. And why this I thought was important today was because the MakerSpace, as you saw in the video, it's something that students can use as a takeaway, and the skill set of learning CAD, the skill set of architecture and building. They had a recruiter come at the end of our senior year with some of the government contractors, and they offered me a job because this was the first place in my class. And that was really, really crucial. One, there weren't girls of color back then. This was in 1996. There weren't girls of color. There were not many females at all. There was only 2 other females in the class, and predominantly was a male-driven, career field. And they offered me a job as a 17-year-old, a $30,000 position with a government contractor to draw, use AutoCAD to draw Navy schematics for ships. Wow. And I turned it down to my parents' dismay, and they'll never let me down. But it was so gracious because as I told them I was speaking today, and they couldn't make it up, but my father said, "Oh, we've got your house in my guest bedroom closet." And Ellen, so they love you because this was from 1996, still intact in the closet in the guest bedroom as it is to this day. And it is 2022. So you can imagine how long it's been in their closet. So these are some things that you can make here. Again, learning how to use the software and then making a 3D model of anything gives you a tangible representation, and you all can come up later and see. I mean, it is a completely framed house that you can build from this. And the floor plans I don't remember where they are from 30 years ago,
Yeah.
but that was actually floor plans from a local builder. So it's
Yeah.
truly a representation of a livable home. And so that's something that a student can use as a skill set to get a job, clearly at a government contractor that works with Pax River, if they still would like to do so. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's just what I wanted to share today.
Thank you so much. Really cool, right? Now, I won't be the bad guy because Wynn already told what year it was. So I didn't have to ask how long ago was it and get in any trouble because you told the year. But I'd like to transition that to Alex and just ask, based on what was just described and what Wynn did during her senior project, how much easier is it now to do something like this? Like, what's the transition like now that we are just a few years ahead? Not very many, just a few years ahead of that. What is the change in your opinion about what she described?
Well, there's a laser cutter in the other room that if you fed a sheet of balsa into it, we probably could have all those walls cut out in about 20 minutes.
Wow, wow.
And I want to take about 20 hours. I want my time back.
I thought that was something that we'd be able to learn from, just how far we've come with the technology, but even at that point, how beneficial it was for you to be a part of that. So thank you for this example. Thank your parents for us. It'll be on the web. Show them the video. They'll love it. And so I'd like to transition to Bernice and just talk about how you see the MakerSpace, and I hope you're ready. We did see that you were able to see the video online, our virtual audience, and it looks like if you were to post your questions, we might be able to even see them. So feel free to post your questions online, and we'll be asking you to come to the mics here in just a little bit. But Bernice, based on what we've heard, you've given a lot of context for how this benefits and builds the skills of our students. I'm wondering what you see, how you see the MakerSpace functioning as a catalyst for change. Like what's happening in the world and how can these MakerSpaces help us?
Bernice, that's a great question. So again, there is a lot of research on makerspaces in communities and in higher institutions of learning, higher education, and also K through 12. And one interesting idea that's coming out of this is that makerspaces also have the potential to close gender gaps. In terms of, again, self-efficacy, student sense of belonging before and after using a makerspace. So I think that this is something we need to pay closer attention to because, we don't want to further create disparities in STEM education, already being experienced by females and minorities. There's also some interesting research showing emotional connections and how that role is impacting women persisting in engineering studies, again, through that hand, body, heart connection in the makerspace. There's just something different with experiencing learning in that tactile manner versus in abstract. And again, that we talked about collaboration. Makerspaces can help to create that sense of belonging. And again, that's something we need to look at to draw in non-STEM students and expand beyond just STEM education, because we've already talked about business and other disciplines being critical to that whole makerspace community. So I really do want to see some expansion laterally into other disciplines outside of STEM to engage students in those other disciplines, arts, humanities, even social sciences, as well as what we're seeing now, engineering and business. You know, you can think of makerspaces, you know, in some sense as just more a glamorous term for things that we might have already been doing, hands-on experiential project-based learning, combined with that workshop that's designed to meet whatever the needs are for those students or for that project. So last thing I want to say is I want to see that lateral expansion and even more meaningful collaboration across disciplines. I can give you a couple examples. For example, at CSM, we have faculty in the cybersecurity area collaborating with faculty in criminal justice on how can we create our new criminal justice digital forensics lab and bring in the cybersecurity students for some collaborative learning. Yeah, and we're also looking at different challenges that students can participate in and include students from the business and the arts or from the health sciences to work on a challenge, to again collaborate and participate in this in some type of either structured or unstructured type of learning experiences in makerspaces.
That is so rich. I love the idea of being able to provide access to break barriers, disparities in gender and racial barriers, as well as cross-discipline work. I love those ideas, and that really does move us toward positive change. So thank you for that. I'm wondering, because I really do have about 3 or 4 pages of questions, so I could continue talking to these experts for a while, but I will welcome Skylar and Nishay to wave at me if they get any questions online. And then while we're doing that, does anyone want to be the first brave soul to come to the mic? You may need to press that button at the top of the mic, and maybe just tell us a little bit about who you are and move into your comment or your question. Thank you for being the first brave soul. Let's get ready. You may have to press that button at the top. Make sure it's green for you. There you go.
All right, my name's James Kaufman. I have been probably doing things in my garage for about 40 years. Ever since I've had a garage.
Yeah.
My question is, can anyone address some of the history
Mm-hmm.
of MakerSpace? Because they've been around a long time.
Oh, that's good.
I have gone to several of Jimmy DeResta's makers
Mm-hmm.
conferences and
Mm-hmm.
space.
Mm-hmm.
I've also attended CSM and got certified in welding, both on TIG welding and MIG welding after I retired. And I spent 40 years as a systems engineer for government contractors. So if anyone could kind of talk about that, because I know University of Maryland used to have a makerspace.
Wow.
And it went downhill.
Wow.
So some of the pitfalls, some of what you guys have seen and going to do possibly to keep this one going, and also address how do you utilize the makerspace?
Mm-hmm.
How does someone come in? Do they have to be a student? Do they have to be attending CSM?
Yeah.
Can they be just a person that's Charles County resident?
Mm-hmm.
What do we have?
Oh, I'm in love with these questions. Thank you. James, Jim, which one do you prefer? Jim, okay, got it. Does someone want to start? And Andrea, I agree. Great questions. Anyone want to start in particular? Again, you can hear where he went, and then where we'll end is how the community can take a part in it.
I mean, I can probably answer at least some of the question. I don't work for CSM, so I can't answer the access portion of it, but I've been working at the company that I'm working at now since 2008, and actually been there since I was in high school in the early 2000s, and kind of around 3D printers. I would help do installs back then, and really the first time I ever heard MakerSpace, really it was more called the Fab Lab, the Fab Foundation, if you've heard of that, the MIT Fab Foundation. Actually, the Community College of Baltimore County, CCBC, I think maybe one of the first in Maryland to establish a lab like that. And of course, there have been spaces that were probably really MakerSpaces, but maybe just not called that for a long time before that. And then there's, places where you can share tools and things of that nature. So I think it goes back to what truly is a MakerSpace and as part of the question, but
Just moving it
oh,
close.
okay. So back, over a decade ago, it became a very popular thing to establish a MakerSpace. And you're right, a lot of them have not succeeded. And I think part of that, there's actually an organization for profit MakerSpace called Tech Shop, if many of you have heard of that. And that started out in San Francisco, and they quickly, just like all things tech try to do, is quickly try to take over the world. They actually had one in, was it Alexandria or Arlington? That one failed, and then they all failed. And that's because they tried to do too much too quickly. They bought insane amounts of equipment that were all, $500,000, $1 million pieces of equipment. You had to take classes. They wanted to attract people that would be spending thousands of dollars a month on rent to go there and develop ideas. And there just wasn't the market for it. I don't know if many of you remember when 3D printing really hit the mainstream for the public, which was about 2010 with MakerBot, the company. You actually have some MakerBots in there. 3D printing has been around since the early 80s, but the general public was not made aware of it until basically the consumer grade printers became very popular. Everyone started talking about it. It was like this Star Trek type fantasy technology that came out. And the same thing in my mind happened then. 3D printing stocks took off. Everybody's, oh, this is the next generation thing. Everybody's going to do it. It was the most popular Christmas gift that year. And guess what? It was about a month later, the most popular footstool, because people didn't have the skills. A MakerSpace is nothing without the design skills. That's what you're teaching here. You're not teaching how to 3D print. You're not teaching how to, you might be teaching how to 3D scan, but there are not many jobs out there for 3D printers, people that just feed a 3D printer. 3D printer does that, right? You start, you might maintain it. The job is design. These are tools. These are just like the tools you've had in your garage for years and years. These are not anything more than that at the end of the day. You have a 3D printer, you have a laser cutter. You need to understand what it does, what it doesn't do. And once you do that, you make decisions about when to use this tool and when not to use that tool. So I think when this technology is new, and for our generation and generations before my generation, it's this magic wizardry type technology that you just can't believe even exists. For people younger than my generation that have grown up with this, it's boring technology they've seen their whole lives. And that next generation that's coming up with this is going to see that as just another tool. My 3-year-old and 5-year-old, I call it daddy's next day toys, because I have a 3D printer in my basement and they just order stuff from me. Hey, daddy, I want a dragon by tomorrow. I'm like, where do you think I'm going to just whip up a dragon? Luckily, it's websites like Thingiverse exist and I can download a lot of these things. But if I have to design it, which my daughter was very insistent on a 3D printed custom house this past weekend, which I told her I will do it for her, but we're going to sit down there together. And it didn't go that well, but I did at least print a first floor. But the design part takes forever, even if you know what you're doing. So I think the failure comes from expectations, at least from a mindset of people coming in and thinking they're going to come out with this gadget within a few days. We live in a world where that instant gratification is something people expect these days, but even as much more quickly you can create an idea with this technology, there's still no real instant gratification. Sure, I could laser cut that house out in 20 minutes, but the key is if I have the design. It's still going to take me just as long to design that, maybe a little faster today with some of the 3D CAD software, but she used CAD software back then, and that would have greatly sped up her process. If I don't have the design, that's still hours and hours and hours of work to design it. I just don't spend the 20 hours making it. I spend 20, 30 minutes making it at that point. As far as the longevity of MakerSpaces from a financial standpoint, that's still a challenge for a lot of the schools that I work with. They're a lot of times funded by grants, but you have to staff them. You have to have safety classes. You have to have people come in. You have to develop a pay plan. I mean, some of them try to do a gym membership type deal where maybe you pay monthly, maybe you pay per session. Those are the types of things that a lot of the colleges have to work through and figure out. Some of them are very successful at it. Some of them are not. I think just obviously for me working with College of Southern Maryland, there's been a lot of planning going into this from what I've seen, and I know a lot more that I haven't seen. So I think that they've set themselves up and avoided a lot of at least the pitfalls I've personally witnessed. They have thought through those ideas. So I'm expecting this to be one of the successful ones. But you're right. Makerspace is kind of, it's another buzzword at the end of the day to some degree, right? But at the end of the day, people come in and they see technology, they have access to technology they would never have access to otherwise. And if you have an idea in your head, you can pretty much make that a reality in that room over there. We were talking earlier about how you could use some of the equipment in there to prototype something and turn it into a product. Back maybe 25 years ago, a little bit before I actually started working with professional grade 3D printers, one of the things that we used to show people as a demo part, there's this thing that you can actually go to Home Depot and buy right now called a tarp clip. So it's a 2-pack of tarp clip and you slide the thing down and it grabs your tarp. It's got a ring on the back so you could, clip the tarp and then tie it to the top of your car while you drive down the highway. That was actually prototyped. The person who designed that and sold it to Home Depot, or actually, pitched it to Home Depot for them to carry the product. He purchased a $50,000 Stratasys 3D printer back in like 2001 for the sole purpose of that design. He had the idea in his head. He designed it in CAD. He printed it out. And the thing that we used to tell people when we would show the power of this type of technology, and again, we're talking about selling a $50,000 3D printer, and this is an individual who took that risk, was that he discovered a design flaw pretty much immediately after he printed his first design that would have caused Home Depot to say, we're not buying this had he gone to production with it. So
Wow.
the whole concept of prototyping is we have a design in our head, we put it into a computer, we prototype the first step. Every single step along the way, the further along the process that you discover a flaw in your design, it's tenfold how much more expensive it is to fix at that point.
Mhm.
So for a company to invest in a piece of technology or this individual, that was the difference between him just instantly failing. Because if he skipped that part of being able to prototype it and said, I think that this looks great on paper, I'm going to send this out and have somebody create an injection mold and I'm going to make 100,000 of them, he would have lost every cent that he invested into it because it would have been a complete failure. So now you have 3D printers on the market that are $300. Sure, some of them work okay if you like to tinker and some of them don't, but you still have the, $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 version of what's available today in there. You have high-end technology and you don't have to take that risk. But if you have an idea, you can come into the space and you can get the result of that, which is making something and now I can take out and pitch and then create a successful business by myself. And I don't think there's ever been a time before these types of spaces where that was really possible for an individual to do. So I do think there's still challenges with these types of spaces. I don't think that any space is going to be absolutely perfect. There are, unique challenges to every region that these spaces are in. And I think that's one of the biggest issues is you can talk to the makerspace in Allegheny County. You can talk to the makerspace in Baltimore County, but you're in Southern Maryland. These are distinct regions, even within the same state. So some of the things that work up there aren't going to work down here. And you kind of have to work through those things yourselves for your region and figure out what works for you. And I think the colleges, the spaces that actually are able to do that, they end up being successful. And the ones that just never figure it out, of course, just like a business, right? They end up struggling and some of them end up closing. So I don't know how much of your question I was able to answer with that.
Listen, you answered that. Was that not just the most comprehensive? Not only did you give us the history of it, but you also gave us examples of ways in which and reasons why they succeed and why they might not work out. I think the only thing that you didn't answer was how the community here can have access. I hear you, how the community here can have access. If you hang on with us, because we're going to give about maybe 5 to 10 more minutes of conversation, we're going to hold that answer out in suspense just a little bit, because our director of the Velocity Center is coming right after our sharing to literally tell you how you can become a part of that. So there's a little suspension there to make sure you hang on till the end. Is that okay? We're coming right back to that question when we're done. But thank you so much for that, Alex. Are there other questions? Anything online? Just looking at you there back. Okay. So anyone else here would like a question other than that one? I promise we're going to get back to it. Any other comment? Yes, please come on up. And I recognize that we pulled the mics up for you a little bit. Feel free to draw it a little closer to you. We're doing as much as we can to sanitize, and I will summarize the question just a little bit after you ask it. Oh, let's press that button for you. Yeah, just that right at the top.
Got it.
Hello, there you go.
Anyway, hello, everybody. Yes, I live here in Indian Head like the rest of us that are here today. But this is so great because I really wasn't prepared for this at all. My wonderful neighbor was saying, hey, I need a ride. I need a ride to this Velocity Center. I said, place that has been there, it looks empty all the time. You know, and I pass it all the time going to Village Green. But anyway, getting to the question. Now, I'm like an ex-drafter. I was like when I was in school, everybody was like, oh, that's a guy thing. And then we did mechanical drafting, which I had no interest in. I wanted to do architectural, but they didn't have it. And I was in the Prince George's County School system at that time, and they only had that. And so I went to a vocational school, and I just wasn't interested in that. But as I got older, I really wanted to do drafting. So I am a drafter, you know, but I didn't go any further. I worked for a few architects in Los Angeles. And so in my 20s, and then when I got married and kids, and my dream went away. But this is great. But my thing is, when people are in these spaces, how secure is your design? How secure is you come up with a design and it doesn't have the flaws right off? You know, somebody even with experience like myself, I know dimensions. I know I had to learn CAD. I mean, really had to learn how to do math. But and your design is workable. It's good. So how secure is it that somebody's not going to come in and review your stuff, see it, take it and market it, and then how are you going to prove that it was you
That's
that designed it? So that's my basic thing. I've been around the block a few times, so unfortunately I've had people, take your idea and for their own, and then you have to prove, no, that was me, and I gave you the idea, and then you're going to try to take it. So basically, if you can answer that, or if it's something we need to develop.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Excellent question. And I don't know, I know that we're going to get some information more about what this space in particular does and offer, but typically your experience has been possibly at other maker spaces. How has the designs been secured?
Well, I'd say, of course, it's different everywhere, but think about the alternative. You actually are with the machine here. So the machines themselves, they can be set to store things in their memory and things of that nature, but you also can keep that from being the case. But the alternative is to send your design out somewhere over the internet and have it produced for you. And there's a ton of service bureaus out there that'll do that. Of course, they have their whole part of their website that'll explain why their service is secure for that purpose. But that's actually, again, one of the sales pitches we used to use when selling to commercial customers is maybe you're saying that you're only prototyping 5 parts a month and it doesn't make sense from an ROI standpoint to bring a 3D printer in house. But what are you doing right now? Where is your design going when you're having a prototype for you? What if the person who prototypes it thinks it's a great idea and they're the ones making it? What's stopping them from making it and selling it instead of saying it was their idea? So that problem exists no matter what. I personally, if I can come in and use a machine myself and then make sure that the file that I sent to the machine is no longer on the machine, I feel much more secure about the fact that I have control over the entire process as opposed to designing it at home and then uploading a file to, everyone knows once it's on the internet, right? No matter what they say, it's not really deleted. Facebook, it got rid of your account. No, I don't think you did. There's still those profiles and all those things. And you had that conversation with your wife and all of a sudden you're getting the advertisements on your phone. I swear, it's like, we never even Googled that. You know what I mean? So if I can keep that, it just happened last week. So it's crazy where the technology is going. But for me personally, I would feel, yeah, and there's still going to be security challenges here, right? You could accidentally leave something on a computer. Is there going to be a way for you to bring your computer in and plug it into a device and run it? You know, those are challenges themselves, because now that's a new security issue. What kind of viruses are you bringing into the space? So
Right.
there are things to think through, and there's going to be challenges, but I think this is a more intellectual property type secure environment than the alternative, which would be sending it somewhere else and having it made. That's when
That's so
the
good.
designs get really taken.
Yeah.
Good.
That's such a great point that you yourself are at the computer using it. So you're able to decide when it's, done and how you secure it. When, I'm not sure if Bernice, you would like to share, but when, please. And bring it close to you, yeah.
Yes, so I can attest to that. So the MakerSpace, one thing that I told them that I absolutely love is think about it as from ideation to creation, right? So to your point, it is literally from start to finish with you if you're doing a prototype. Right now, I'm the Maryland SME for manufacturing for our Maryland SBDC. So statewide, I am the person that they come to for prototyping and taking people from the intellectual property process, from idea in your shower to mass production through a factory, right? And so we walk you through that process hand in hand. And very often, to your point, that file, you're having to go through a third-party manufacturer. We're having to either go to Baltimore or some other part within the state, and God forbid it be offshore, because if it's offshore, it's already duplicated and they're already selling it back to you at a cheaper price. So guaranteed to know that when we use our manufacturers here, there's quite a few in Baltimore that we go up to, that we're familiar with, that understand the prototype process. But again, you're giving them your file, or the engineer is taking just your hand drawing on a napkin and they're creating that CAD file for you, or that SolidWorks file. And then from there, creating the prototype. But you have to entrust someone else with that. With here, again, it's ideation to creation. You're staying with that file and you're getting the model unto itself. And then from there, you can then maybe have someone do an NDA and mass produce it on a grander scale, from the small, 3D printer to maybe something a little bit more in injection molding, or if you need another type of process done.
That's great. I'm thinking, Bernice, about your Talon robotics students who are creating things all the time. Is there ever a discussion about intellectual property or how to keep it secure?
Yes, we have had that experience, but I do want to qualify and say that now we're getting a little out of my area as far as
I understand.
intellectual property, but I can, or a lot out of my area. I can say that we did have that experience. What I can speak to is that for engineering design, by the time you get to the 3D printing or the prototyping, you've already done a huge amount of work in terms of the actual engineering. You might have done analysis. You already have 3D models. Aside from the print models, you're already going to have a lot of calculation and engineering work before you get to that prototype, because the prototype is really just the look and feel and that tactile piece. You're already going to have a good part of that design work done, and I imagine that you've already got a provisional patent at that point. So yeah, the Talons did design it was an oyster counter machine, and I think that a couple of them did spin off a provisional patent, but I'm not sure if it got any further. They were just in the middle of their studies and had a lot of fun with it. But I do remember them winning a competition and going through that process. But what I did was hook them up with the business faculty at that point and handed them off.
You're a smart woman, Bernice. And so hopefully that helped with the question. Thank you so much. And it looks like we have another. I think we are very soon on our way to visiting the space, but we welcome your questions. Please let us know who you are.
Thank you very much. I'm Jim Brewster. We live over in Pomfret. We came because we got an email and talked about this. We thought we'd stop by and see what it looks like.
Awesome.
I'm not too sure you answered the question. So I have a follow-up to the first question and that question.
Please.
The follow-up is what I heard was, what are you doing here in this facility. to
Yeah.
Make sure no one steals my idea when I bring it here, not the supply chain.
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
But the second part is, it sounds like that you also have advice and counsel for the rest of the supply chain. So that once I prototype something that might work, if I'm talking about how do I find an injection molding company, or how do I, that you all can help me through the rest of the business process to take it to market. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what we do with the Small Business Development Center. So we can help you here with your prototype, and then we can help you from scaling it going forward. As far as security within the building of your actual on the software, as Alex has pointed, you want to make sure if you're bringing something in, designing it here, you're removing your file from the computer here, taking that home with you if you're bringing it on a thumb drive or something of that sort. So it's just like you would if you're going into a library or any other public facility you want to do your due diligence to make sure that you've protected your intellectual property to remove it off. And then from there, clearing any caches or anything of that nature from the computer itself.
and I think you may hear a little bit more at the end about how you can take part and maybe get some of your specific questions answered if you choose to take part moving forward. Are there any other questions? Please, come on up. Good evening.
Matt Helming, engineering teacher, St. Charles High School.
Woo!
In our lab, yeah, we have the traditional table saws, band saws, every saws, cut off your finger saws. But at the same time, we do have our laser engravers, laser cutters, 3D printers, CNC machines, and stuff like that. So my question is, with Charles County Public Schools being arguably your largest population on campus, was there any outreach to the schools to see what familiarity do those students already have on what machines, what software packages are they already trained on? Because in our ninth graders are already versed in 3D modeling, 3D design. We can
Nice.
come in here and sit down with anyone here and take their design from paper and put it into something that we can just then go print, and bam, there's your 3D model. At the same time, we're doing collaboration with the art students that they're in the sculpture class that they are coming up with their designs, and we've had the AP students put them into the programs as well, and then they're 3D printing as opposed to having to go through and do it via ceramics and stuff like that. So I guess back to my question was there any outreach to see what does that large population coming to you already know? What are they already trained on to have that familiarity when they get here, as opposed to, well, I already know how to do it in this program, and the programs and machinery you have here is different. So now I have to relearn an entire new software package.
I think that's a great question. First of all, thank you for your service to our students. And yes, absolutely. And our Associate Vice President of Continuing Education and Workforce Development happens to be here. And so she can speak to your question. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for the question. You can imagine that the investment in an asset like this needs not to happen in a vacuum, and it did not. The conversations around what types of assets would support this community in this space started 4 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. And representatives from the K-12 system, engineers from off the base, community hobbyists and certain groups, educators here at CSM sat around multiple tables talking about the technology needs that were here to augment, not supplant, what's already in the community. So what we know is that, the base has a tremendous amount of technology. Schools have tremendous amount of technology, but once that student is out of the classroom and they go home, or it's a Saturday, they don't have access to it anymore. So this provides a level of redundancy, but also a level of advancement in technology. So maybe I learned on a MakerBot level printer, but here I'm going to get to touch an industrial Stratasys level printer. So advancing those skills and giving adults and youth the opportunity to engage in activities that they don't have the opportunity to do in the workplace. Even the engineers on the base, if they have a personal project and they do it on the base, it becomes property of the Navy. They have to do it somewhere else. And so having a space where they can engage. So part of what you talked about today was collaboration. We want to see that 14-year-old standing next to an engineer on the base, standing next to a faculty member, working on that 14-year-old's project. This is the type of space that allows that to happen and give young people access to people and resources that they might not otherwise ever have had those experiences. So to answer your question, yes.
That's a great example and response. This is gonna sound really layman, but I'm an English professor, teacher, and I think about the redundancy that you talked about, the same classes that are offered on a high school level. Some of those levels are still offered at a community college level for the opportunity for enrichment and further learning. So thank you for that, Ellen Flowers Fields. We appreciate that. Are there other questions in the room? Yes, please.
My name is Chelsea Williams, and as someone who has never made a CAD file and doesn't even really know what a CAD file is, my question is how much will there be opportunities for people from the community who are coming in at no knowledge level to use this? Or, I have elementary school children. You talked about elementary school kids. How much will I be able to bring my kids and create something in an afternoon? Because you talk about this design process and how intensive it is. But if you don't know how to do that, or you don't know how to have the time to do that, and you still want to use the MakerSpace and experience it, is that something that's for somebody like me, or or not?
Yeah, Leslie, I don't know how long we can suspend this answer. I'm saying it's come 2 or 3 different types of ways. So I think you're gonna have to.
Trinace?
I'll address the first part or the first question that came up with regard to how community will be able to engage in our makerspace. Coming soon, by this fall, our plan is to have makerspace open to the public on a membership basis. We will have individual memberships, and we will also have educational memberships that will be at a lower price than just the individual memberships. And that will be available for anyone in the community that wants to be a member. And that will provide you access to the equipment that we have available in the makerspace. In terms of how to be able to have a more in-depth or even introductory learning about CAD files and how to actually design to print out on the 3D printers or the laser cutter, we will also be offering classes. So not only will we have membership opportunities for those who may already have some experience or just want to come in and feel comfortable enough to come in on your own and tinker around, or more than tinker, but for those who are novices like me, who have never, printed anything on a 3D printer or laser cutter, we will have classes that will teach you how to do that so that you have a comfort level. We expect to have the classes offered here at the makerspace. No. That's somewhat going to be driven by demand, and we'll have to see what that demand ends up being. Well, you know what? So you can create at any time because much of your design work is then going to be sent to our printers here. Because one thing about 3D printing, if you may not be familiar, and Alex can probably speak more about this, but depending on your actual design, it could take, an hour to print something. It could take 24 hours to print something. So the printing is not something that you have to be here in the makerspace to see happen. You send your files. We will then program the printer to print out, and then we will have a system in place to let you know when your design is ready to come pick up. Yes. Yes, that will be part of the process. And so you will be able to send your design here and then the setup will happen. We will print the item that you have sent. And again, you will receive a notification that your design is ready.
And Bernice, please feel free to unmute and share. I love that you had a response to that as well.
Well, there were a couple CAD questions, and I wanted to assure Matthew Helming, I think I know you from robotics, from the middle school, that, you know, your students should not be worried that they learned, let's say, SolidWorks, and now the MakerSpace is using AutoCAD. All of these tools are just so very similar. Our students learn one, pick up the other. And you know, so the issue isn't the specific tool that they learn, but just the logical way that these tools work, and they are very logical. In fact, I just experienced using the Cricut machine. My sister-in-law has one, and the whole time I'm just looking at that. That's CAD. That's CAD. I'm also, you know, I also love to sew. I have a number of sewing machines, and I draft my patterns using AutoCAD. There's separate software I can buy to do that, but all of those tools are just 2D drafting or 3D modeling. It doesn't matter. I don't think we need to be fixated on one particular tool over another. And, you know, and that final format, I'm sure Alex can fix us up with whatever, you know, we started with to get to that final printed or laser cut project.
Thank you for that, Bernice. Before turning it over to Leslie, we're going to have an opportunity to continue the conversation. Alex has so graciously agreed to allow us, those of us who are here in person, to just walk through and maybe ask some questions and point out some things for us. Even if you are online, we hope that you'll come and visit us. I just wanted to say from a standpoint of a CSM employee who has watched, as has been said earlier, kind of the vacancy of the space and then the Navy utilizing the space. It's really important, I think, and monumental that we are here able to experience having waited, you know, supply chain demand and all of those things, waiting for equipment to come and all of those things. And so what you are seeing is really the birth of a new something here in Southern Maryland. And of course, we're going to work out the kinks and learn from you who are in the field and those who are laymen like myself and Chelsea, what needs to happen to cater to us. But really, you are here to help us celebrate the beginning of all of that. And so we just want to thank you for that opportunity. And I turn things over to Leslie, our director of the Velocity Center. Thank you for the opportunity to moderate. And thank you to our panelists, please.
So thank you to our panelists and to our moderator for this very informative discussion on what is a makerspace and the relevance of makerspaces in education, entrepreneurship, and workforce development. The CSM Velocity Center Makerspace, as I mentioned, is scheduled to open by this fall. So we'd ask that you just please monitor our website, which is csmd.edu/Velocity Center for the latest updates and information about memberships and our programs. And for anyone, as it's already been mentioned, who wishes to remain, we will have the makerspace open, and our gracious panelist, Alex, is going to provide a tour and explain to you more about the equipment that's located in our makerspace. So thank you, everyone, for attending in person, and for those who are on Facebook Live and on Zoom, we appreciate your attendance this evening. And please, again, for those who are in the virtual world, any opportunity that you may have to be down in Indian Hill, the space would be available for you to come and take a look. So thank you. And Alex, once you have an opportunity to walk over, anyone that wants to head over, and you can go through this open garage door and head over to the makerspace across the hall. And I'll be available as well if there are any questions. Thank you.
Oh, are they? Oh, great. Good, good, good. Nice showing too. Nice job.